Hi guys, and welcome to Piano and Keyboard Artist, where we discuss the artists related to pianos, keyboards and synthesizers. And today, my very first Talk video, we're going to discuss and analyze the vocals of Mark Hollis. So, my first video on Talk, and it's about time, because as you know, Talk is one of my favorite bands from the 80s. I've often felt that Talk were very underrated and slightly unappreciated. Now, you may or you may not disagree with me. Of course, Talk were well known, and if you study popular music of the 80s, Talk's name will come up there. But I still feel that they didn't quite get the recognition that they rightfully deserve, because as far as I'm concerned, Talk are a better band than what most people give them credit for. Talk had a sound of their own, a very honest sound, a very, some people might say, moody, gloomy sound. To me, beautifully melancholic and very true to life. The sound of Talk, very distinct, and also one of the most sort of individual frontmen in the history of pop music. When Mark Hollis opened his mouth, there was no doubt that it was Mark Hollis singing. You could not confuse him with anyone else. And his presence, his frontman presence, he wasn't the kind of frontman like, let's say, Dave Vaughn or Jim Morrison or, one of these larger than life kind of people. But he never needed to be, because his strength was in his vulnerability. And that vulnerability and sincerity is what makes Mark Hollis one of the greatest frontmen in pop history as far as I'm concerned. Now, I'm very excited to tell you that I've just obtained the parts to the song It's My Life, the stems. Now, if you're not a musician or a producer, stems are the individual parts which make up the song. Obviously, when you listen to a song on the radio or TV or wherever, you hear the whole song. But it is always fascinating when you strip the song down into its individual parts, the drums, the bass, the vocals, the keyboards, and all the individual elements, and you can see how the song is made up. In this video, however, I will only be focusing on Mark Hollis's lead vocals. I will not be analyzing the keyboard parts. If you like this type of video, then I will invite you to join my Patreon community, where I will be doing a video on this with the keyboard parts and everything. But for this video, we're going to focus exclusively on Mark Hollis's vocal parts for the song It's My Life. If you watched my video on Tears for Fears and I asked the question, can you hear the difference between Kurt and Roland? I was discussing the way Kurt and Roland use their voices, and that video resonated with a lot of you, and you asked me to do many types of videos like that, hence this video. So in the demonstration I'm going to give you now, when I'm talking about Mark Hollis's voice, understand that to demonstrate what I mean, I sometimes need to exaggerate what I'm doing. I'm not trying to sound like him. That's not possible, because remember, if you're a singer, you'll understand that the sound of your voice is made up by, your physiology and your, the shape of your nasal cavity and your skull and your everything. So I'm not trying to sound like him. I'm really just trying to explain to you how I feel it is that he uses his voice. So to determine what type of singer Mark Hollis is, remember I said there are fundamentally two types of singers. There are technical singers and there are emotional singers. And as you remember, no singer is extremely on one polar opposite end of that scale. Most singers are somewhere in between. So some singers are very, very technical, but they're a little bit more to the emotional side. And then you get singers who are very, very emotional and a little bit more to the technical side. So most singers will be somewhere on this scale. There's no such thing as a completely technical singer and a completely emotional singer. But Mark Hollis, to me, is a very emotional singer. So this being extremely technical, this being extremely emotional, Mark Hollis is a lot more to the emotional side. And when we analyze his vocal parts, you will see that. Now, I am a huge advocate for sincerity. That is why I don't like cabaret, and I'm not a big fan of musical theater. I don't like prog rock, and those genres where people have like these amazing voices. Think of singers like Michael Bublé, you know, no disrespect, but, you know, he's got a great, flawless voice. My cup of tea are people like Bernard Sumner, you know, Pet Shop Boys, Dave Gahan, you know, even David Bowie. They never had perfect voices, but they were, in my opinion, perfect artists because their sincerity is what shone through. And Mark Hollis is one of those voices, completely vulnerable and completely sincere. So he is fundamentally a very emotional singer, as we will hear when we analyze the vocal stems. How does he use his voice? He utilizes the head voice, but he also uses a lower larynx position. Now, remember in my examples, my extreme examples, I like to use Axl Rose. When I look into your eyes, you know, really very pharyngeal. Tina Turner also uses a lot of pharyngeal, and as do singers like Aerosmith for rock. That pharyngeal, it really cuts through the mix. But then we take singers like, as I said, Dave Gahan, Roland Orzabal. Welcome to your life, there's no turning back. That lower larynx position, it's like when you yawn, it's a very open sound. So to get the Mark Hollis sound, you need to place your resonance to the soft palate, up there. It's my love, he's got that, So to get that sound, it's kind of like going, you get into your head voice, so it's sort of there, and then you place it at the soft palate, just at the roof of your mouth there, and then at the same time, lower your larynx. And that's how you get that. Funny how I found myself in love with you. Now, once again, I'm not trying to sound like him, but I'm just explaining to you how I feel it is he uses his voice. So once again, up there, and then add the lower larynx. Funny how I found myself in love with you. And then, it's my love, don't you forget. You know, so it's not strained. It's quite once again, these things are difficult to explain because we're talking a feeling rather than something that I can put my finger on. But it's very, to me, Mark Hollis's voice is very, it's kind of like, it's very open because of the lower larynx position, but at the same time, because of the placement, it seems quite constricted. So it's almost like to get his sound, you have to go up there, where it's quite restricted. Make like a constricted sound, and then at the same time, open the larynx, lower the larynx, so it gives it an open sound, and that gives you that. It's my life, don't you forget. It never ends. And he puts a lot of, he pulls a lot on the vocal cords. Anyway, we're not going to turn this into a vocal tuition, but I just wanted to explain to you how it is I feel he uses his voice. Right, we're going to jump into the session now, and we're going to analyze the vocal part for It's My Life. Right, so let's jump into this. So what I've got here is the session for It's My Life, and I've loaded it all into Logic here, which is my DAW, digital audio workstation, for those of you who are not musicians and producers. But forget about technicalities. We're not going to talk technical. We're going to just talk in layman's terms here, because the focus here is just to listen to and analyze Mark Hollis's vocal. Now, if you look at what I've got here, this is the session. So these in pink here at the top, these are the vocals. I've got all the drums here in brown. Blue and purple are the synthesizers, the bass. Here are some strings. There's a flute synth and an acoustic at the bottom here. But for the purposes of this video, we're not going to do any of those. I'm just going to mute everything else there. We are only going to focus on the vocals of Mark Hollis. Now, as I say, you can join my Patreon community, where I'm going to be doing a video on this entire song in a lot of detail. But for here on YouTube, we are only going to analyze the vocals. So let's look at what Mr. Hollis has got. Now, this is very important when you listen to songs in isolation like this. Remember, we are used to hearing songs as complete songs. It's so fascinating when you strip back all the individual parts and you just hear every part in isolation. It's absolutely mind-blowing, especially if you've grown up with the music and you've listened to it for so many years. And one of the things that is so apparent when you listen to the songs in isolation like this is just how flawed a lot of these sessions are. Now, I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but I do, as a producer myself and a guy, and I coach people, and I'm always trying to teach them that, guys, the songs you listen to and the songs that that I look up to, we have to understand that they are not perfect. Nothing's perfect. Things can be done well, but things are always flawed. I remember seeing a documentary once on TV called The Planet Rock Diaries or something like that. And I think it was Dark Side of the Moon. One of the engineers and the band was sitting there and they were listening to some of the parts in isolation. And it was funny seeing the engineer and the band, who recorded it, just kind of cringing when they heard the parts in isolation. Because the point I'm trying to make here is, and it's very important, is that you must understand, if you're an artist or a producer, you must understand that perfectionism is a really bad thing. And as I repeat myself, things can be done really, really well, but nothing can be done perfectly. And that is illustrated in this. Listen to the rawness and the sincerity of Mark Hollis's vocals. What's also interesting is you can actually hear the spill on his lead vocal. Now, spill, if you're not a musician or producer, what that means is when a singer goes in to record their vocals, usually you will see them singing into a microphone and they have headphones on and then they sing into a microphone. Now, spill, that is the term we use when the sound from the earphones spills into the microphone and you actually get that, or they call it spill or bleed. And if you're an engineer, you'll know it's not what we want. However, in the case of this, it is just fascinating to see how much spill and vocal, how much bleed there is going into the microphone. Right, so Mr. Hollis, check out the lead vocal here. You can actually hear the spill there. Can you hear some of the music coming through? I love this song. And his first line.
Funny how I found myself in love with you.
You hear that? Love with you. It kind of tethers off. It's not flawless, but it's sincere. Now, I don't think Mark Hollis, was classically trained, nor am I. And in fact, all my favorite artists are not classically trained. But to me, it's all about sincerity. So when I pick things apart here, it's not me being critical. I'm just trying to point out the raw humanity and the sincerity in his performance here. Now, listen to this line once again.
Funny how I found myself in love with you.
Love with you. He doesn't go love with you. He doesn't sort of like with classical singing, they'll teach you to like tether it off. He doesn't. His voice just kind of love with you. It kind of just warbles out.
In love with you.
But I love that. It's just so sincere. A lot of the imperfections you cannot actually hear, in the context of the mix. Because remember when you got the drums and the bass and the synths and everything sort of pumping at you, there are certain little inflections in his voice, like little things that are not perfect that you don't hear. But it is beautiful to just hear the honesty in this context.
If I could buy my reasoning, I'd pay to lose.
I pay to live. You see, it's kind of like, it's almost like he's not providing what they call proper breath support, I pay to lose. He's just going, pay to lose. But his style is very conversational. This is pop music. It's not musical theatre. It's conversational. And it's so raw and sincere.
One half won't do.
Hear that? Listen to that.
One half won't do.
One half won't do. He kind of, you know, there's no sort of diaphragm or breath support there, which classical singing tuition would have a problem with. But screw that, man. This is pop music.
I've asked myself, how much do you?
Can you hear how he gets more intense there? I've asked myself, how much do when he engages his diaphragm, he gets a bit of that hooty sound. How much do you lose? And this is an example of a singer who really loses himself in his performance.
I've asked myself, how much do you?
Did you on the how much? He just really grunts it, and he doesn't care because he means what he's saying. Listen to it again.
I've asked myself, how much do you?
Yeah. He means what he's saying.
Commit yourself. It's my life.
It's my life. Just.
Don't you forget.
Don't you forget.
It's my life.
It's my life. You see, once again, it's the and then the it's my life.
It never ends.
It never ends. Listen again.
It never ends.
And once again, classical musical singing training would have a problem with that because the note is not supported. Screw that. Okay, and interesting here as well. At this point, a backing vocal comes in, so I'm just going to quickly solo that part here. Listen to the backing vocal here.
It's my life.
It's my life.
It's my life.
It's my life. Just conversational.
It never ends.
It never ends. And I see there's a third part here, which is interesting. They've actually got a vocal part and a synth part on the same track, which is quite strange. Check this out. You see, in isolation, it just sounds all over the place.
Funny how I found myself in love with you.
Let's turn this part down.
If I could buy my reasoning, I'd pay to lose. One half won't do. I've asked myself, how much do you?
Get into you.
It's my life. Don't you forget.
There's a double up there.
It's my life.
So he's going, it's my life, with a lot more, diaphragm support. And at the same time, he's going, it's my life. So it's my life and it's my life at the same time.
It never ends. It never ends.
And there's a classic doubling sound there. Right, okay, let's go on to the second verse. Oh, you are noticing all the spill in the background. Listen. That's the sound, as I say, of the music coming out of his headphones into the microphone.
Funny how I blind myself. I never knew.
Yeah, there's no breath support there, but it doesn't matter.
I never knew.
Yeah. Once again, singing teachers would have a real problem with that. So would Simon Cowell and the X Factor, but we don't talk about the X Factor.
If I was sometimes played upon, afraid to lose.
Next part. You can actually hear a little sniff there. He did like a little sniff before he took a breath. Listen here. Hear that?
I tell myself, what could you do?
Now, am I being petty by pointing that out? No. But in these days of music production, where everything is so pristine and pushed to be over perfect, it is typical that what we would do is we would cut out all the silences, all the basically what we would do is in modern day music production, if I could just zoom in this, so these are the waveforms, obviously, where he's singing. All these in between parts, with the spillies, we'd cut those out. What we typically do is we would take a scissors like this, and we would cut all these parts out. So to give you an example there, we'd cut it out like that. So you see, you'd cut the silence out in between, and you would just have the, obviously, you just want to record the vocal. You just want to play the vocals. You don't want the silences in between. But it is so fascinating to watch these, to see these older sessions and just see how flawed they were. They're not perfect, man, but these are great songs.
If I was sometimes played upon, afraid to lose.
It's almost like a comp here.
I tell myself, what could you do?
So once again, there's that little sniff there. Listen. Now, typically these days, what you do is you would cut that out because you would want it pristine, because that's the way we do records these days. We're just too over polished.
I tell myself, what could you do?
Love that.
Convince myself it's my
love.
Don't you forget.
It's a bit of echo there.
It's my love.
Now the echo is on the spill.
It never ends.
That's interesting. Listen to this.
It never ends.
I mean, how abrupt is that? I mean, if these days, if I was recording someone, that would be too abrupt. I would ask the singer to redo it. But the point I'm trying to make is, man, this is a great song. This is a great song, and these vocal takes aren't perfect, but they don't need to be.
It never ends.
Yeah, that's just so abrupt, out of context. Once again, but that's not how you listen to music. In the mix, you wouldn't notice it. But it's fascinating now. I bet a lot of you are going to go and listen to this now, knowing what these isolated parts are, and try and find them within the context of the mix.
It never ends.
That just sounds so abrupt. Now, I, is that I can't remember that actually being in the record. This this here. I can't remember hearing that. Is it there? I'm going to have to check. I mean, they may have well cut that out and not put that in. That doesn't mean that all of this that you're hearing here necessarily made it into the track. But it is fascinating nevertheless.
I've asked myself, how much do you?
He said, I'll ask myself, how much do you?
Commit yourself.
Well, there's a little anomaly there. Listen to this.
Commit yourself.
There.
It's my life.
It's my life.
Don't you forget. Caught in the crowd.
Let's bring in the backing vocal here as well.
It never ends. It's my life.
Here, there's like an ow. Listen here.
It's my life.
Oh yeah, that'll be this part over here. Just zoom in on it, yeah. That there. He's going, ow. Listen here.
It's my life.
Ow. This part over here. Ow. Did he bump himself or something?
It's my life. Don't you forget. Caught in the crowd.
Caught in the crowd.
It never ends. It's my life. Don't you forget.
You can hear him going, listen.
Forget. Caught in the crowd. It never ends.
Okay, that's obviously some kind of processing done there in order to create an effect. Wow. And there's a lot more detail we can go into it, if we go sentence by sentence, line by line. But remember, that is just raw.
Caught in the crowd.
Obviously, they would add things to it, and I'm not going to get into a music production thing here now, but they would obviously have a compressor on it. A compressor is obviously a tool which regulates the volume between the lowest volumes and the highest volumes, so that because a human voice is very dynamic, it can go very soft and very loud. A compressor is there to kind of balance the difference between the louds and the soft. So we're not going to go into too much of that. So they would put a compressor on, and they'd probably put a delay on as well or something. Once again, it's just to show you. Let's dial that down a bit to about, yeah. So raw, it would be like this.
It never ends.
And then they'd put a bit of compression on. Of course, I'm not going to get it perfect now, but you'll hear.
It never ends.
You can see how that needle moves as he sings louder, obviously to compress it more. Let's put a bit of delay on it and watch this.
It never ends.
See, you just give it a bit of effect. So the point I'm trying to make is that on these stems, you're listening to it raw.
It's my life.
Oh. Well, let's take the effect off there.
Don't you forget,
Don't you forget,
caught in the crowd, it never ends.
I love his voice and I love his sincerity. And if you're a aspiring producer and want to get into music production, watch this. These are examples of great songs, but analyze the individual parts and you will see they're not flawless, they're not perfect, but they are great songs. This just makes me, whenever I get hold of stems like this or sessions like this and I listen to the way they're put together, I do realize how, like in a case like this, you will look at these individual parts and you go, oh my God, that's a little bit sloppy. Not in a bad way, but it just seems as though records are made in a completely different way these days. Look, this was the days before auto-tune and all the fancy stuff we have today, to make things really polished. It does also mean that because with music production, because we've got so much tools to our disposal, it does mean that we've almost forgotten what a human voice sounds like. So, putting these vocals in isolation, you might go, oh, that's a bit off. But that is because of music production, we have forgotten what a human voice sounds like because records these days are so over-processed. But all you need to take from this is listen to the sincerity of that. Listen to how unperfect it is, how flawed it is. But with all that, forgetting all that, just put this song on, turn it loud, and you will hear it is a stunning, stunning song. It ticks all the boxes for sincerity and real, and it's like, this is a proper song from a proper band. Rest in peace, Mark Hollis. I love you, man. What a loss.
It never ends.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that. So, can you see how, if you've listened to this song many, many times, as I know I have, and indeed it may be one of your favorite songs, understand that it's not flawless. It's flawed. It's not perfect. And, to aspiring producers, you will notice that. But this is an example of where something is greater than the sum of its parts. It's every individual part there. Take every part with all its flaws, put it together collectively, and you have the whole picture, which is a great song. So please leave your comments in the description below. Let me know what you think of Mark Hollis, Talk, and would you like me to do more videos like this? Anything you'd like to say? And indeed, if you've enjoyed this video, please hit the like and the subscribe button and join this community. And if you enjoy this video and you want more in-depth content like this, then please feel free to join the Vaughn George Patreon community, where you will find videos like this with more detail, and also your chance to hang out in exclusive live chats and Zoom groups, and a lot more fun. Anyway, my friends, thank you so much for your support. I'll see you on the next video. Be safe. Adios.